Hey everybody, this is Perch. Um, all right, so I want to relate to you this series of events and see if you have the same reaction I do. And by all means, you can, cite this as I'm out of my mind, I'm the strange one. And I'm sure a couple of you will have that opinion. Or maybe just that's a general statement, but for this story particularly. Um, but I think a lot of you, to me, this is a bit of a wake up call as to how stupid things have got. And I'm not sure exactly. Maybe it's because I like a lot of classic comics. Like a lot of people you watch on YouTube, one of the big complaints is comics should be like they were in the 80s, in the 90s. Those were the days when comics really knew what they were doing. And that's, my heart is definitely there as well. And that's when I started reading comics. As I've said before, avoid any shadow of doubt, there are certainly comics today that I like. And I was talking to a comic writer last night and was we were talking about, one of the issues. It's not like, there's several comics out there, and some are bad, and some are structurally sound, but they're not enjoyable. They're just flat. It's like it's just there's nothing happening in those books, and it's a shame because they get picked apart for this panel or that panel, but the real core issue is they're dull. Like superhero books shouldn't be dull. If anything, they should be erring on the side of kind of insane over-the-top action, and sometimes that can go too far, but they need to have some kind of momentum to them. They shouldn't feel like treading water, and that's how a lot of the comics do feel. And so and that's a problem. Now, by the way, it's subjective, of course. Maybe you're reading the comics like this thing is action-packed. I don't know what this guy's talking. That's fine. But back to the 80s for a minute. We hear over and over people talking about the 80s are the canon, the top of the hill for what comics are. Well, for me, some of my favorite comics in that era, some of the memories I have were the annuals for the X-Men and Mutants. Art Adams did this great Asgardian saga, if you remember that, as crossover. It was really cool. Alan Davis turned in several annuals that were highly memorable, and some were impactful. There was this one X-Men where Wolverine kind of found his inner self through this thing. The X-Men all succumbed to temptation. It was a one-off story. It was kind of a one-off villain, but it was powerful. Had some of the best Wolverine moments I think come from that comic. But there's another kind of comic that came out for the New Mutants New Mutants Annual number 3 back in the 80s, and this comic was a silly comic because in it, the Impossible Man comes to Earth, finds the New Mutants, and in particular Warlock, and the two of them engage in kind of a silly stunt-off level fight. The book is filled with cartoonish, crazy action of Warlock and the Impossible Man, both of which can change their form. The Impossible Man being a shapeshifter, Warlock being, with his capabilities, he could also become anything. And the two of them proceed to have an annual-filled fight, beautifully drawn by Alan Davis. Like the illustrations are wonderful. Some of the best renditions you'll see of the New Mutants anywhere. I mean, hands down, these characters look great, and they take the forms of a bunch of Sylvester Stallone characters at one point. One's Rocky, one's Rambo, and they're fighting each other. I think Galactus fights Godzilla. Just all over the place, different kind of heroes, villains. They're just having this clownish, crazy fight, while the rest of the New Mutants scramble to try and keep everybody from noticing that this is going on because they don't want to blow their cover. And it's just a fun issue, as a really fond memory in my mind. Hopefully you've read that comic. If not, New Mutants Annual number 3. It's beautiful to look at, and it's fun. This comic does not change all of canon forever and ever. It's a fun book. So, in this fight, at one point, the Impossible Man changes form into Viper, and Warlock changes form into Spider-Woman. Now, both characters have done this before at different times. The Impossible Man every now and then will change into a bikini girl and kind of taunt the heroes, or make them feel weird. Warlock at a couple different, not as often, but a couple different times also turned into a woman form. Also a monster form, a robot form, a dinosaur form, like every type of form. It's not any kind of statement. It's just shapeshifters being silly, which was what the point of the comic was. So I was reading this over again, and I saw this panel where Spider-Woman is fighting Viper. I laughed to myself that, hey, if this was modern day comics, the writer, in this case is Chris Claremont, would be on Twitter going, hey, y'all, I just transed one of your favorite characters, suck it. And the fan base, there'd be, endless videos about how, SJW Marvel was, making male characters into women. Beloved, the Impossible Man is my favorite hero of all time, and now they've turned him into a woman for 2 panels. And the kind of the silliness, as I'm thinking about that, I'm chuckling because of the absurdity of that statement. And in my head, I'm like, yeah, but that's such a ridiculous joke because, even as silly as the culture war and everything else has gotten, it's not that silly. It hasn't gotten that. Everybody knows the Impossible Man does all this kind of crazy shit. And, and so that would be like a stretch of a stretch of a stretch, right? To go all in with that. Nobody would do it. But anyway, so I post on Twitter. It's like, proud moments in comic book history. A comic was produced. This comic, New Mutants Annual number 3, because, I've posted panels before and people think they're fake. So I cited the comic. The Impossible Man fights Warlock, takes female forms, and no comic writer bragged about transing the character. And no internet videos were made to complain about the decaying morals of Marvel. A happier time. In many ways, kind of the time that, I don't know, not speaking for everybody else, but a lot of us, me, would like to get back to where the comics coming out were pretty badass. Again, Alan Davis, wonderful comic. This is a happier times. This is what comics are. They're meant to be kind of, exciting and silly at different times. This comic was exciting and silly with great art, good writing. What else could you ask for? Anyway, everybody would get that joke, right? Well, first of all, lots of people did. It was fun. Lots of people got the joke. A few people got the meta commentary of like, oh man, now you said this, somebody's going to come in. Well, sure enough, few people did. A couple people came in to explain to me that the internet didn't exist in 1987. Technically it did, but in a very low format. If you're going to be nerdy dates about it, then, it did exist, but regardless. But the internet didn't exist. And then if the internet did exist, this is my favorite quote. If the internet did exist, fans would absolutely tear Marvel a new one for this woke shit. God damn it. What? Seriously, I look, please, for the moment, I'm not laughing. I'm only laughing at you if you take this seriously. Surely you're not, right? Right? Look, let's say you could be an internet commentator and you could have posted 10,000 videos about woke DC and Marvel and Disney and all that kind of stuff. I have to believe even you would recognize that this is silly and ridiculous because it's literally a character from the moment it was invented that has become balloons, hammers, monsters, dinosaurs, yes, women, men. I mean, that's what the character does, and it's goofy. It's like Bugs Bunny dressing up in a dress to taunt the hunter at one point was not a statement about sexual rights. It was just Bugs Bunny screwing around because that's what Bugs Bunny did. It wasn't an attempt to corrupt your children either. It was just silliness. Everybody gets that. I mean, right? Come on. Don't make me lose all faith in humanity. But anyway, yeah, and people dug into this one. Like, this is absolutely like the decay of Marvel goes back even farther than we thought. Tell me you didn't read the comic without telling me you didn't read the comic. Right? But wait, there's more. So this isn't just me expressing my frustration with one side of the culture war. Yes, I can, quote, straddle the fence and bitch about both sides. So, and again, be honest with yourself. All of you should be fence sitters on this topic because both groups are stupid as fuck. Okay? But here's the worst part. So then I look into my messages, and sure enough, here's a DM from a current DC writer. Used to be a Marvel writer, current DC writer on bad, not top level books, but not bottom either. And she writes, I know you meant this as a joke, but the Impossible Man and Warlock are both canonically non-binary. Making fun of non-binary characters is one reason why people are suspicious of you and your channel. Fuck! What is wrong with all of you? Now, I'll pause here for a moment to say, if you haven't read this comic, I'm not advocating piracy, but try to get your hands on this as soon as possible. Reserve your judgment before you are tempted to go, well, I don't know. I guess I kind of see their point. Before you do that, I want you to read this comic. In this instance, I promise you, it's a good one. This comic is an enjoyable, fun read. It's, again, great art, great story, characters good, ridiculous, just having fun. I want you to read this comic because I defy you to actually read the comic and then come back with any take other than, yeah, that was pretty silly. And boy, the internet sure sucks today. Like, I defy you. What is wrong with you people? This isn't that hard. And look, the thing is, there's definitely, without a shadow of a doubt, definitely problems. There are definitely things out there that are, not appropriate for kids being published. There's comments that are wrong. There's all kinds of stuff that is a problem to bitch about. Lots and lots and lots of things. This one is an intelligence test. I'm sorry. It just is. There is not a reasonable world to look at this and go, oh yeah, I could, there's a point to be made here that woke comic was infecting things back in the 80s through 2 panels of a alien shapeshifter that turned into a female, villain for 2 panels. And that is clearly an indicator of something big. Like, no, it's not. Anyway, what do you think? Like, this is ridiculous, right? I mean, I think that, again, there are legit things to fight about. I think if, for example, you are a comic writer trying to get more work, you're a DC writer, and you decide that the right approach is to spam everyone about how crappy DC is, that they didn't let you trans Superboy. Yeah, that's you're nuts. It's a terrible decision, and it is indicative of kind of craziness, run amok. It is certainly bad judgment and craziness that has run out of control. I also grant you that, if you are making your, I don't know, 10,000th video on why Black Panther shouldn't exist, then you might want to ask yourself some questions. I'm just saying. You might want to. No, I by the way, I haven't seen any video. I'm sure it's the internet. Something exists somewhere. I haven't seen any videos. It's not a shot at one person. I haven't seen anybody talk. Unlike the other example, I haven't seen anybody. I should use a real example to be fair. I don't. But this is nuts, right? Thanks for thinking.